Hey everybody, Jon-Paul from the Lord of the Rings Return to Moria team here. I'm really excited because this week we announced we are going to be releasing an original soundtrack of the game. It's 34 tracks of underscore mining songs, tavern songs, veneration songs. We are going to talk all about that today. That soundtrack is going to be coming out on August 27th with the Steam release. You can buy it on Steam as a part of a bundle. Today with me are the two people that really made all of the audio and the songs and the music in the game. Just made that and came up with it, and everything from coming up with the whole idea to even have songs the way we do in the game really came from this. So joining me is Max and Teddy. Could you guys introduce yourselves?
Yes. Hello, my name's Max Lescohier, and I was the primary composer on Return to Moria, alongside a lot of other sound-related jobs and such. And this is Teddy.
Hello, I'm Teddy, and I was the ringer of a songwriter.
Yes.
They said we need one of those. They said I know a guy.
It's true. That's exactly what I said.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know how the singing really works in the game, why don't we quickly just look at? I'm gonna bring up a video, and let's just take a look at how this works in the game. So we're just going to play what happens when players together come and start mining. This is one of the kinds of songs we call the mining song.
Farewell, farewell, my one true love. Farewell, farewell, says she. For though my heart stays tied to shore, I now must cross the sea.
So that's an example of the kinds of songs that were in Return to Moria. So Max, could you talk a little bit about where the idea even came from to have more than just, an underscore to the game?
Yeah, totally. This goes way back to when we were first starting pre-production on Return to Moria, and we weren't totally sure what the game we were making was and what fun meant. All we knew is that it was about the dwarves, and we had certain kind of pillars and themes that we wanted to reinforce through gameplay, and that was things like camaraderie and cooperative gameplay. And at the time, we were experimenting with a bunch of ideas and concepts, and simultaneously, sea shanty TikTok was everything.
It was big.
You could not escape it. And people on the team started talking like, oh man, dwarves and singing, it's a natural thing. Maybe there's something there.
Mm-hmm. And it fits so much with Lord of the Rings. I mean, so much,
Yeah.
in all four of the books that we're drawn from, songs all over the place.
It's true. The dwarves are singing, and it just felt right. So I figured I could make something, mock something up to see if we could get some dwarves singing in game. I put together a demo track and got Russell to help me do the engineering side of things for the weird stuff I did in Wise, which is our audio middleware. And we made a working concept where like there's a box, and if you stepped in the box, your guy would sing, and if you stepped out, they would stop singing, and you could like go in and out and sing and stop singing. And everyone on the team kind of loved it.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've actually got that clip.
Oh, do you really?
And this clip includes you from 3 years ago talking through the clip. So you're going to hear your own voice in a second. But I thought I'd show this. So this was
history.
This was the original. I mean, I remember you came to us on the leadership team and was like, this could be cool, try it out. And we looked at it and we were like, I don't know, this could be complex maybe. And then we saw this clip and we were like, we got to do this. So here's the original prototype from early 2021.
Howdy everyone, this is Max, and I'm going to be showing off the dwarf singing system that Mikhail and I have been working on this week. As you explore Moria, you and your compatriots will be able to sing to buff your mining speed, increase your combat prowess, or just pass the time around the fire. Our primary focus has been to create a system where dwarves can seamlessly drop in and out of a song without starting or ending at awkward points during a phrase. Each dwarf is assigned a different vocal part upon joining the server. Dwarves in the white square will sing, and those that leave the area will stop, though they will finish the current line they are singing before becoming tacit. Re-entering will have them resume singing, but only at the beginning of a phrase. In just a moment, the first dwarf is going to enter that white area where they will start singing, so sit back and enjoy the performance. Far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to find our pale enchanted gold.
It's so funny because that's Teddy singing on it.
I just wish that we had the foresight to add the tap dancing ourselves.
It's on default Unreal Engine footstep sound effect.
So Max, we had the idea, you prototyped it with help from the team. How did Teddy get involved? And tell me a little bit about how you two know each other.
Yeah, I mentioned Russell. Russell was the first one who mocked it up, but Mikhail, as I mentioned in that video, is really the one who took it all the rest of the way. So at first, we realized we wanted to do singing, and I started putting together demo tracks and stuff and realized that I am not the best songwriter that I know. And Teddy is one of my best friends from school. We went to college together, and they are an amazing songwriter. And so early on, they helped me record some of the demo tracks we just used to stand stuff up. And then at some point when you and the rest of the leadership gave me the green light to start writing songs, I called up Teddy and was like, hey, do you want to write some dwarven folk music with me? To which the answer was yes.
Now, where did you two go to school?
We went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. And Teddy is you can tell him what you studied there.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about yourself, Teddy.
All right, yeah. So Max and I met at Berklee College of Music. We started there in 2014. I'm a pianist, as my first instrument, but I've been singing since forever. And when I was there, I majored in songwriting and I minored in musical theater writing. So when Max was saying we've got we might be ending up writing some music for some game that I'm not allowed to tell you about. And I was like, well, just, if you happen to need help, you know a guy.
It worked out great because at some point you kind of got to figure out what I was working on because I had you record some of the demo tracks with me. And then when it came time to actually start writing songs, I called you up, told you roughly what we were doing. And then later that night, you told me you'd already written the first song, which was Make Me the Perfect Miner. You wrote it on the subway and recorded me a demo on the very same day where I asked if you could start writing songs for stuff. And that's one of my favorite songs in the project. So
Me too.
that was when I knew it was like, yes, this is the perfect person for the job.
Why don't we listen to Make Me the Perfect Miner then? Let me pull that up because I love that song too.
Make me the perfect miner, dig him forth from the soil.
Ancient cheeks cut from coarse shadows cast from Arnor, with a glimmering undertone. Flesh can be plundered, rock holds its own, wrought from the finest, sprung from the stone. Opal the iris, silver the bone.
So that's just one part of it. So Max pitched this to you, and then you got inspired on the subway and wrote this. So tell me a little bit about how did this song kind of spring into your brain?
The first line that came to me for that song was Opal the Iris, Silver the Bone, because I had been going back into The Hobbit, and I was like, I'm going to start from the beginning and like get inspired by Tolkien's stuff if I can. And I was thinking about all of the different rocks and metals and things, and how the dwarves might feel like that kind of stuff is in their bones, right? And I was like, okay, how many rocks and how many metals can I fit into a song? And I was home.
That was around the time when also you both were working on Ale in the Hand, which is a song that became, not only was it a part of our trailer without the vocals, but also was the backing song to our demo video that we used to get funding and actually make the game. So why don't we listen to Ale in Hand, and then we can talk about that one.
A day of toil by pick and soil, pour over ore till day's end. Way, hey, when the work is done, ale in my hand by the hearth. Now swing her strong and wail her song, pour over ore till day's end. Way, hey, when the throat runs dry, ale in my hand by the hearth. Ale in my hand by the hearth. The forge is fire, a hungry choir, pour over ore till day's end. Way, hey, when the fuel runs low, ale in my hand by the hearth. The steel will roll on glowing coal, pour over ore till day's end. Way, hey, when the embers cool, ale in my hand by the hearth. Ale in my hand by the hearth.
So I'm cutting these off so we can keep going, because we've got a lot of things we want to listen to. That song really felt like that was, I remember some of the original ideation was we needed the pickaxes to be a part of the song, and we went back and forth about whether the sound of the pickaxe would be part of the music or in game.
Yeah, this song has this. You can see this is kind of like the starting point for us. Like, it's got the sea shanty call and response kind of thing going on. We're talking about very dwarfy things like mining and drinking, and it also, like you say, it hints at that like kind of gameplay. We were trying to figure out, how does singing work in terms of gameplay? Like, singing's fun, but how do we tie it into something you actually do? And so obviously the first choice or the first thing we'd go to is mining. There's a natural percussive instrument there with the pickaxe. And we did experiment with trying to sync up mining animations to the songs so that you would have a natural rhythm section alongside the singers. That turned out to be very difficult for many reasons. Mikhail probably still has nightmares about trying to get that work over the network. And also the fact that different songs have different tempos and different time signatures. And so we found it would just affect mining too much, and it would make mining itself not fun. And so ultimately we divorced it from that. But yeah, this was like the first song that I ended up writing. I think it was slightly before Teddy was officially a songwriter on the project. Although I did call you to help edit the song, because you know your stuff better than I do on that front. But then from there, once we got the green light, we knew we wanted to have a much broader kind of canon of songs for the dwarves. Like, we didn't want to just always write about mining and drinking, because obviously that's what people's conceptions of dwarfs are in their head. But folk music,
surface with dwarves.
Like, we knew we wanted to write love songs and story songs, and like Jon-Paul wanted the song about all the different pies in the land.
Yeah.
Rip the pies I've known.
Yeah. Teddy, when you think about like one of the things I'm really interested in is when you both would talk about where you'd go to find the inspiration for the songs, because it was a bunch of different places. Talk about like, I mean, I think I often would kind of freak Max out because we'd be in a meeting and I'd be like, we need 60 songs. Like I want a triple album, knowing that we'd probably not get 60, but we'd get something. And so, but mainly in my head, I was just trying to get like variety. Cause you think when you play a game like this and you have something that's so interesting, it's really interesting the first 2 times and the first 3 times. And then eventually you're like, okay, I'm tired of this. So we knew we would need a lot of material. Not just a lot of songs, but a lot of verses for the songs, and then variety from it. And so that was probably a pretty big challenge to try to figure out how to write this many songs.
Yeah, I mean, Max and I had a spreadsheet running with all of our ideas of like potential things that dwarves could even care about, and we ended up finding that oh wait, dwarves are just another humanoid species, right? So they would just sing about the regular folk song stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had all sorts of ideas and things we knew we wanted to do immediately. Like I said, like we knew we wanted love songs. We wanted to do like a children's song at some point. And we also kind of looked into the other kind of thematic ideas that were being talked about on the team too. So we talked about how like fellowship and camaraderie were important parts of the game, and also dwarven culture. We took a lot of inspiration from Bradley, our art director's work, because he had a very strong sense that, you know, the dwarves are craftspeople and everything they do is like with thought and care and the type of attention to detail they have. And we brought that to the songwriting too, where we wanted to make really like well-structured songs that care about like the details of things. So like in Make Me the Perfect Miner, it talks about the materials that they have, or like we care about the way things look, or also
the way that they feel. And like, you know, we're not just putting together the perfect work person. We're putting together somebody whose cheeks are carved in just the right way, and somebody whose hands are calloused from their work, because that's a value that these dwarves have.
Yeah. And we had no shortage of ideas. But to your point, the constraints we were under were very difficult because we knew we needed a lot of material. We needed a lot of songs, but we also needed them to be very short, very bite-sized, and very effective very quickly, which was a very difficult thing for us to wrap our heads around first, because when we started pitching songs for review, the constant refrain we got, all the feedback we got was, this is too long.
Too long.
I'm bored. Not that the songs were bad. Not that the songs were bad, but just like this was going to be tied to gameplay, and we can't just make the player stand there for a minute or 45 seconds or even 30 seconds or even 20 seconds inside. We needed to find a way to make bite-sized little songs that were really satisfying and really evocative. And Teddy especially, that was a frustrating part for you early on, was like, you wanted to write these really like beautiful, intricate songs, and then they were just too long.
They were just too long. I think that it is a lifelong struggle for everybody to learn how to be concise.
It's true. And we had to be uber concise, because the segments of songs that people were asking for were like 10 to 15 seconds, or we started to push that out as we understood how they fit into gameplay.
Well, I just thought it wasn't fair, because Tolkien, nobody ever asked him to be concise.
That was the other struggle.
I hesitate to say it, but one of the things we often hear from our more dedicated players is they wish the songs were longer.
I have 13 verses of Old Elga locked and loaded.
Speaking of, go ahead, Max.
Well, and to Teddy's point, we also knew that we wanted to adapt some of Tolkien's songs from the books, and some of those songs are very short, like only a couple of paragraphs, and some are pages long. And so figuring out how to adapt those into our gameplay needs was also a challenge to solve. And ultimately we did it by breaking the songs up into verses and you sing them a verse at a time, which I think is like the perfect solution.
So I want to play. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that breaking down, in particular, Song of Durin was a big challenge.
Yeah.
Max toiled over that for months, maybe.
Well, and we knew that that song was going to be like a special song that had some specific context. Early on, we thought it would be used to like unlock new areas or doors or something. But setting that to music, my original plan would have turned that into like a 20-minute suite of like music, which I would still love to do. But
gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, let's look at how that ended up being in the game. So there's a couple different kinds of songs in the game. We heard an example of a mining song, the call and response work song, that was the original term for it. This is what we called a veneration song, the moments when the dwarves would be venerating something. And so let's take a look at how that ended up.
Young, the mountains green, no stain yet on the moon was seen, no words were laid on stream or stone when Durin woke and walked alone. He named the nameless hills and dells. He drank saw a crown of stars appear as gems upon a silver thread above the shadow of his head.
Till Durin wakes from sleep. Tak fa Durin kudrir.
I have to say that experience in the game, watching people play when they find the first statue of Durin at the beginning of the game and they think that they're just hitting a button to repair and get a reward, and that happens, is a universal moment our players talk about how meaningful it was to them. So you two just did such an awesome job on that.
Yeah, that was a big feature that took a lot of thought to figure out. And also we broke a lot of the rules where like we had said like, oh, we can't have the player standing around for like a minute doing nothing. And then that was kind of the only way this song could work, because it's broken up into these distinct verses that are, you know, we can't shorten them past these.
This was also the only time I think that we could break the rule of, okay, well, they're not all like choral singers. They're just like people going about their day. They're not like trained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one we decided they would be inspired by their ancestors and become choral singers. We should talk about who's singing there, because the voice quality is incredible.
The voices throughout the game, the singing was done by our wonderful friends from the San Francisco Symphony, as well as San Francisco Opera. And that would be Matt Peterson, Clayton Moser, Kevin Gino, Sam Faustine, Megan Spiker, Hillary Jensen, Morgan Balfour, and Caitlin Austin. Amazing classical singers. And we were super, super lucky to have them on the project, just because, you heard them. They sound amazing. They were a delight to work with. And they were also super willing to work with the weird kind of constraints of the project, because they are, you know, performers and vocalists for world-class symphony and sound like that. And so when they came in and we had to ask them, hey, so these are rough-hewn dwarves that are perhaps not classically trained. Can you sing a little worse? Which was like one of the weirdest things I've ever had to ask a amazing trained singer to sing. But
what's a good example of that? Because we just listened to them like full choral, like incredible voice. What was there a song where you really had to make them like, hey, gargle with some rocks?
So
Barrels.
believe it or not,
I think of
they're
barrels.
doing that
Barrels?
on this song too.
Oh, really?
Yes. So early on when we had them in for our first round of singing, where we were kind of just seeing, all right, we've got a bunch of songs. Is it viable? And do we have the money to record a bunch of songs with pro singers? We kind of did this little workshop thing with them where we had them all invent a character. So I didn't ask them necessarily to do specific things, but I told them like envision who your dwarf is and what their kind of mannerisms are. And they all came up with different interesting takes on it. Like, and so they took out a lot of the like vibrato and a lot of the like kind of more proper techniques that you would find in like classical singing, and added in a lot more like throaty, guttural kind of stuff.
Cool.
And so they were basically acting while singing.
Nice. So
Also,
Teddy, you thought that Barrels Over Bound for Erebor was a good example of that.
Yeah, I just also remembered. Is it actually in the soundtrack?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I've got it if you guys want to listen to it.
Okay, awesome. Yes.
Let me pull that up.
When the keg has filled its final pint, and drink runs low late in the night, only ale from the mountain will do. So barrels bound for Erebor. Well, the roads are full of orcs and trolls, the forests are filled with spiders and wolves, though dwarf can fly as hard as they try. So it's barrels bound for Erebor. Into the barrel and into the river. Fasten the lid, or how you will shiver. Water is cold, the prospect is colder. A feast without drink as the fire grows older. Bustle and tumble, pray you don't sink. You don't want to end in the wrong kind of drink. And if you should make it and claim your reward, pack yourself in and bring 2 barrels more.
Incredible. So that is, we saw, I don't have a video example of this, but we saw an example of the work song Mine In, and we saw the Veneration one at the statue. This is one where the dwarves have brewed some ale. They've got a tankard. Mechanically in the game, you have to actually be holding a mug of ale, and you hold the use button down, and you start to sing and dance. And so in that one, we didn't want it to be polished. We didn't want it to be call and response. We wanted it to sound like they were a couple of ales in. That you really hear that with that one.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one where they let loose. They were constantly worried about, are we going too far? Are we being too like weird with our singing? And we just told them, we will let you know if it is too much. And
it never was.
It never was. It was always perfect.
I insisted on being zoomed into a couple of these recording sessions just because it was entertaining for me.
Yeah. I mean, Teddy, what is it like to hear these like incredible professional singers singing your songs?
It's wild because sometimes, so I'm aware that these are good songs. We wouldn't have allowed them to be part of the game if they weren't. We have high standards for ourselves. But then when I am hearing it not in my crummy demo, but being sung by members of the San Francisco Orchestra and San Francisco Symphony and Opera, I kind of forget that it's our songs for a moment, because I'm like, wait, this sounds very thoughtful and beautiful and real.
Yeah, I remember when we had Morgan singing Farewell, My One True Love, and she just was like, they loved the songs too. That was one of the most gratifying things, was they were game not only to sing the songs, but I was surprised how many of them were Lord of the Rings fans and were super excited and thankful to be on the project because it was Lord of the Rings. And so we all it was good vibes. Those were fun recording sessions.
I think My One True Love is probably the development team's favorite song. That's the one that has come up often. And so why don't we listen to that and hear that one? Because that one, You know, so many of the songs are, they sound like folk songs. They sound, they're like not quite bawdy, but there's like a vibe to them, like a fun vibe. This one I think hits a little different because there's clearly some emotion to this, to the writing, to the when the singer is singing it. There is something about this one. So let's play the My One True Love.
Farewell, farewell, my one true love. Farewell, farewell, said she. For though my heart stays tied to shore, I now must cross the sea. For if I stay, my one true love, for if I stay, said she, each hour I spend in your arms, more faded will I be.
And if I should fade, my one true love, if I should fade, said she, could you forgive what I become when nothing's left of me? Take with you this, my one true love. Take with you this, said she. One pearl as pure as northern light, to prove my love to thee.
So there's another verse that you can hear on the soundtrack, but talk about that song. I mean, I feel like I get emotional every time I hear it. And there's some parts to that talking about fading and across the sea. You can't write a song like that without a deep knowledge of the world Tolkien built.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this tune, like you were saying, it does hit a little bit different, and that's because for I think it's one of the only songs in the soundtrack where we're having them sing just very earnestly and very straightforward about them just being beings with emotions. And this was our kind of take on the human who falls in love with the elf, right? And within the Lord of the Rings there is that tale, right? Of the human falls in love with the elf has to go away because otherwise they'll fade, right? And to me that sounded a lot like a kind of a trope in folk music. I grew up in a folk music environment. I spent, half my life at the Folk Project of New Jersey growing up, right? And there's this trope within folk music called the broken token. And it's a song where, there's our protagonist and their love interest, and the love interest usually is a sailor, has to go away, but they leave a broken token, whether that is half of a locket or half of a coin, so that when they finally return, you'll recognize them, and even if you don't recognize them, you can fit the coin together and say, okay, I know you are my love, I waited for you. In the case of, the elf and the human, or in this case, the elf and the dwarf, this elf is never going to come back, but they have this keepsake.
And it's pearl, which is like, a physical treasure that the dwarves would appreciate and care about. It echoes a lot of like multiple stories in Lord of the Rings. Like there's Gimli and Galadriel and, Arwen and Aragorn. And we decided there's a dwarven version in the canon. And Eowyn, right? Echoes of like American Gold Rush style songs in this too. Like we tried to pull from a lot of different places.
So as we also talk about kind of like favorite songs or ones that come up a lot, I think there's one song that maybe it's because it is one of the first ones that usually plays in the game, but ones that I see players talk often about and make jokes about and becomes almost like a little meme within the Discord is Dinner for Me. So I want to play Dinner for Me. It's a really fun song.
If a spider scared cross my camp, a terrible day have she. If a spider scared cross my camp, a terrible day have she. I'm a feisty fool with an empty fork, and if she would not flee, she would wind up caught in an 8-leg knot. Spider for dinner for me.
If a wolf should pad along my path, a terrible day have he. If a wolf should pad along my path, a terrible day have he. I'm a feisty fool with an empty fork, and if he would not flee, I would hang that tail with a copper nail. Wolf for dinner for me.
If a bear should turn her claws my way, a terrible day'd have she. If a bear should turn her claws my way, a terrible day'd have she. I'm a feisty fool with an empty fork, and if she would not flee, I would raise a toast while her haunches roast. Bear for dinner for me.
I want to jump to the end.
If a dragon swept through Khazad-dûm, a terrible day'd have she. If a dragon swept through Khazad-dûm, a terrible day'd have she. I'm a feisty fool with an empty fork, and if she would not flee, stew for dinner for me.
Yeah, let's have stew.
The singers sounded like they had fun with that one.
Yes, you can hear just how much joy they approached all these songs with, and we let them loose, and if they wanted to try fun, silly stuff, it just added to the atmosphere. That one was also fun because it's kind of got a meta joke for the broader game as well. You might not realize it when you first sing that dragon verse, but
yeah,
you will cross paths with the dragons.
Yes.
I felt clever as heck putting that in there.
And that one also kind of reminds me a bit of the adding. I feel like that was a progenitor to the song gets longer as it goes concept that Teddy wanted to do as well, which
well, we've got the perfect example of that one, which is Knocking at Bilbo's Door, which is another one that people come up. So why don't we listen to a little bit of that one, because that one definitely the song gets longer each time.
Poor little Baggins sat for tea, stuffy as a hobbit could be, when the bell it rang, and what did he see? 2 honored guests a-waiting for he. They hung right up the hoods they wore, but told him not that there'd be more. They poured the milk on the pantry floor, when Philly and Killy came knocking at Bilbo's door. Poor little Baggins sat for tea, grumpy as a hobbit could be, when the bell it rang, and what did he see? 5 more guests a-waiting for he. They hung right up the hoods they wore, but told him not that there'd be more. They poured the milk on the pantry floor, when Dorian, Norian, Orion, Oin, and Gloin came knocking at Bilbo's door.
So just for time, I'm going to jump towards the end of this one, because the last is the best part.
With glee, what does it matter? The drinks were free. They hung right up the hoods they wore, but told him not that there'd be more. They poured the milk on the pantry floor, when Philly and Killy and Dorian, Norian, Orion, Oin, and Gloin, and Biffer, and Buffer, and Bumber, and Thorin came knocking on Bilbo's door.
I love the gasping for air that they added in. I think we should also talk about Scott McDowell, who did all of the mixing for the game, mixed the soundtrack. He couldn't be here with us, but Max, just talk a little bit about like his role in this, because I should mention that one of the things that's interesting about the game is, and one of the things that I think you had really overcame this constraint is, I wanted 8 voices in the game. I wanted the players, it was really important to me when you made your dwarf that you could make that dwarf telling whatever story you wanted it to be. And that meant the game does not have a gender option. You just make it look the way you want it to. And then I wanted to make sure we had a wide variety of voices, because I felt like it wasn't just the beard or absence of beard, the look, the shape, whether it was traditionally masculine, feminine, and anywhere in between, but also that the voice needed to fit the story you were telling. And that meant we needed a lot of voices. I didn't just want 2 dude voices and 2 girl voices, and that was it. And so we had a variety with everything from those in between. And we also debated what accents the dwarfs should have. And we decided, well, why pick one accent? Let's have some that sounded very Scottish and some very Irish and some Semitic in there. But what that meant was the song system needed to make sure that the voice that the dwarf has when they're talking sounds like the song, which means you also had to write the songs so that this sounds good when voice 4 sings it by themselves, voice 4 sings it with voice 8, voice 8 leads, but 4 joins, and then 6 joins, and then 1 joins. And so all of that meant you had to record everything 8 times. And then Scott McDowell would have to mix it all of those different ways. And so even when we get to the soundtrack, there's 8 times 8 variations of every one of the songs. So picking which voice just for the soundtrack would be kind of flattened down and recorded.
Yeah, that touches on a lot of things. So Scott, our engineer, he ran the recording sessions, and he also is the reason we were able to get our lovely singers, because he runs Hyde Street Studio in San Francisco. He has a lot of connections in the area music scene, and he's friends with Sam Faustine, who is a singer for San Francisco Symphony, and through him we were able to find, all of these other just amazing singers. And the way we chose the voices, we started with a classic SATB spread, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. And that covers very broadly human vocal range. And we were super lucky that all of the different singers who we ended up going with all had their own kind of personalities and characters, like I mentioned earlier, how they kind of went into character to sing these, that we were able to line up with the characters that were written from the narrative side of things. So like Kevin Gino, he was like the young, bold, adventurous, like kind of Gaston sounding dwarf, which really comes through. As far as arranging the songs to work with all these different voices, that was early on, that was a part that I was super excited about, was solving this puzzle of, we don't know what voice a player will have, nor how many people will be singing with you, nor how many people have the same voice. And so the arrangements, originally I wanted to do this super complicated modular arrangement thing with like a bunch of stuff. But as we went away from the choral kind of sound and the longer, more arranged songs, we started kind of learning these the ways that we could make more coherent stuff in the shorter form. And I think Teddy can speak to that quite well.
Yeah, so at first, I was in love with this vision as much as you were, of this like modular arrangement where every one of these SATB parts can actually be sung by any of the voices, and so we'll have them all record every part, and that way it doesn't matter who starts singing first and who starts singing second. It was a brilliant vision. I wish that we'd been able to do that, but it ended up not being, the sound that we were going for. And so the main rule that I was following when I was working on the vocal arrangements here was like, okay, we need to make sure that this melody is in a range where it fits within the bounds of soprano, alto, tenor, and bass voices, but not all of them did, right? So I had to slightly alter some of the melodies on some of them and make that happen in such a way that if the melody is altered for a note or two, it still is a harmony, yes, that fits with the existing melody, but it also had to be something that sounded like it conceivably could just be a regional difference in how they sing this song, right? This is just a variation that this, dwarf from the Iron Hills likes to sing, right? And that ended up being, I felt like, a key to making this still sound like just casual dwarves singing rather than people who learned their parts for choir class.
Yeah. Yeah, we often talked about, I think Max and I often talked about how we didn't want it to sound like you were going to dwarf church. And as someone who grew up going to and singing in church, that there's a lot of different ways that could cut that insult. But we didn't want it to feel like they were long and like, or that you could only sing in like, I think about like the songs that we sang in church and it's like only 4 notes. It's like just one beat after another. And like, we kind of wanted to avoid that. So probably a tough challenge there.
Well, and also I wanted to write like very structured, like harmonically dense stuff too. And so I kind of had to put aside my like, I would love to write these epic dwarven like choral arrangements and stuff, but that just was not the vibe that the team needed or was looking for. I did get to do that in like the Courage tags and Song of Durin. So I got my little piece of that, but overall, lots of kind of, It was interesting because I mentioned before we had to ask the singers to like roughen up their technique a little bit. And so it was this kind of circular thing of we didn't want to sound too perfect or too flawless or too practiced, but our singers are very perfect and flawless and practiced. So they need to not be that. But if they go too far, then it just sounds like a bunch of people that don't actually know how to sing. Right. And so like striking this balance of like, quality, but it sounds rough, but like the fundamental core techniques behind the singing are still, really strong was,
I remember someone on the team had the idea of if we wanted it to sound like you're just singing at a tavern, let's just get 8 people from the team to sing. And we were like, that is a bad idea. We're not going to do that. Well, getting back to the songwriting, Teddy, I wonder if there is a song we haven't listened to that you particularly like or proud of and want to talk about.
One of my absolute favorites that we haven't touched on yet is Tavern in the Deep.
Tavern in the Deep. To be honest, I feel like we have to figure out how to get the actual Tavern in the Deep into the game, or just a challenge for players to make the Tavern in the Deep. But let's listen to this one. I love this song too.
Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do, hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do. There's a tavern in the deep, they say, hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, where the barkeep croons to a tune they play, hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do. And once you know how the ditty goes, hum-dee-dee-o-do, means that the oaken door with a raven crest you can sing for your supper and a good night's rest. Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do.
Well, there's always food and there's always drink.
Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o.
You can stomp your feet till the tankards clink.
Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do. And once you know how the ditty goes, hum-dee-dee-o-do, that means that the oaken door with a raven crest you can sing for your supper and a good night's rest. Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do.
If you lose your way and your torch goes black,
hum-dee-dee-o-day-o,
you can whistle clear and they'll guide you back.
Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do. And once you know how the ditty goes, hum-dee-dee-o-do, means that the oaken door with the raven crest you can sing for your supper and a good night's rest. Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o, hum-dee-dee-o-do.
It's an earworm. Yeah. I feel like, Teddy, I think you've got a real talent for earworm songs. The team, whenever we demoed a new song, people were humming and singing it all week. So tell me about Hum-dee-dee-o-day-o. That there's something about that. Where did that come from?
Hum to Dio Deo. So I was, as I mentioned before, I was trying to like work my way down kind of the folk tropes that I love so much, and one of them was nonsense words. And there was a version of Tavern in the Deep where the entire chorus was just a bunch of nonsense words. And it was going lum ding do do bo bo, right? We did meet in the middle on that one.
Yeah.
But you know, I was trying to think about like, you know, with some of my favorite folk songs, we've got a couple of nonsense syllables that even if you don't know the song, you can immediately sing along with this tune. And this was actually one of the only tunes I think that I allowed myself to work in harmony within the singers' voices that wasn't just like variation on the melody, because I was like, okay, it's a simple enough phrase that anybody who's coming in on it, no matter what, is able to, whether they're doing hum diddy o day, oh, they could also be doing hum diddy o do, because we love our drones, right? And
yeah.
then the matter of question was, okay, why would you be singing this?
I forgot about the all nonsense version of this one. This song just goes so hard. It's so good.
You know, Max, one of the things that I also thought it would be fun to talk about is some of the inspiration from the songs came from the book club that we did. So it was really important. I mean, many people watching this know how important being lore forward and authentic it was to me. And I'm really proud that the players who bought the game and love Lord of the Rings have often talked about how authentic it feels. And a big part of that was nobody on the team could work on it without reading everything. And so we had a book club every week and Max, you actually kind of ran the book club where
it's true.
We, I think you ended up reading The Hobbit and the Three Trilogy twice because we had new people coming on and we needed to keep the book club going. But one of the things I remember you doing was we'd have a chapter, we'd talk about it, and you would bring up what in this chapter would be a good song. And that helped fill out you and Teddy's spreadsheet.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Tolkien wrote a bunch of songs. They're in the book. And it was kind of like, of course we want to adapt these if we can. And early on, we were a bit worried about like, well, this is a Hobbit song, like the Bath song, or, this is like a song about Aragorn. But ultimately we figured, these songs have probably spread around Middle Earth in some capacity. And also, Tolkien has a habit about writing like return to glory from, like a fallen, place and stuff. And so whether it's a song about Aragorn regaining his throne, or King Beneath the Mountain, which is about Erebor and not Moria, fits with the themes of our game too. So let's just go for it.
And that was the nice thing about the Fourth Age too, because we were like, well, before The Hobbit, would the dwarves know any Hobbit songs? The Bath song, probably not. The Tavern, the Man in the Moon came down. But we figured, well, Fourth Age, they met Bilbo, Gimli knew Frodo. These songs would have spread by then. Yeah.
And also, we already listened to it, but Knocking on Bilbo's Door, like the dwarven perspective of the events of The Hobbit. Like, we just figured that.
And I was able to convince Max of this, that if the dwarves were going to be proud of any moment in that whole story enough to write a song about it, it would be the time that they pissed off Bilbo.
That they trashed his house.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when a corporate rock band in the 70s wrote a song about how they trashed a hotel.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So we knew that we were going to adapt as many of the songs as we could. And we didn't take everything. Mm-hmm. We didn't use everything. That we had an arrangement for the road song kicking around for a while.
Yeah, we even had we even asked David Sallow to translate the road song into Khuzdul so that we could record it in Khuzdul, and we just never quite got to a version Like it was close. I still have that translation if people want, you can ask me in Discord. But we talked about, I think we recorded some demo versions of it, but we couldn't really find a place in the game where it worked. Yeah, we tried. So maybe
we did. Maybe someday that arrangement will come back. It was basically closer to like a Veneration song than anything else. Like it was kind of me trying to be like, I like writing choral music and I want to make this epic like dwarven choral version. It just didn't have a place. So maybe we'll find its way back. But
I want to wrap up talking about the courage stuff and the Song of Durin. But before we do that, Max, is there a song we haven't listened to that you particularly that you particularly enjoyed writing with Teddy?
Let's see. I know there's, there are many. There's Bright as Brass. I love the top harmonies on that. I think Teddy crushed that one. And also, I'm running through the 30 songs in our soundtrack.
You're looking at them like I am.
Title. Which one, Teddy? Which one is the one in 5?
That's Ne'er Beheld, right?
Ne'er Beheld.
Ne'er Beheld. Let's listen to Ne'er Beheld. I like Ne'er Beheld because there is something about from a lore perspective, from someone that loves the world. Ne'er Beheld really feels like there's just something about this that it almost feels like it maybe could have been the song that we led the game off with.
This is a song that I think we're both proud of the contributions on. I have a couple of lines in here that I'm really proud of, and I think it's insane that Teddy wrote a mining song in the time signature of 5/4. Like that's just doesn't make any sense, and yet the song works and feels good. So that is an accomplishment in itself. I love this song.
Well, let's listen to Ne'er Beheld.
I've ne'er beheld my cause a doom, but know my home will greet me there. The gates will part like open arms, entrusting me with jewels rare. Below the mountains 3 and tall lie pillared halls that stand apart. I've ne'er beheld my cause a doom, but know the road I'll take by heart.
The floors will rise to meet my boot, and drum my feet through ancient halls, where rooted veins of mithril true, like banners hung, will line the walls. Below the mountains 3 and tall lie pillared halls that stand apart. I've ne'er beheld my casa doom, but know the road I'll take by heart. Ha!
Those brooks divine of water fresh, like nectar to my soul will spring. I'll glimpse inside the beer, the 7 stars that crown my king. Below the mountains 3 and tall lie pillared halls that stand apart. I've ne'er beheld my casa doom, but know the road I'll take by heart.
I'll never need for map nor chart. Ancestral song will be my guide toward light from crystal beacon glow. The silver load will mark my stride. Below the mountains 3 and tall lie pillared halls that stand apart. I've ne'er beheld my casa doom, but know the road I'll take by heart.
Yeah, that one just is like, it's this kind of the story of our game. It's kind of the soul of what we're trying to do. And then also like in the recording session, we kind of changed up the arrangement on the fly. That was like we had this burst of inspiration, and it doesn't really come through in the soundtrack version because we made some changes to these so that they're more appealing as individual tracks rather than like the spatial kind of singing experience that's in the game. But this one isn't really call and response where there's a leader and followers in the game. We kind of split the groups into 2 equal sides, and it flip-flops back and forth. So if you're singing this song with like a really, like a full party of 8 dwarves, it has this really interesting like percussive effect and this really interesting like all of the parts are shifting around. And so that was a really cool thing where like we kind of had this idea when we were in the recording studio, and it's kind of something that you could only really do in like an interactive game kind of setting where like you're not sure. It plays to the whole like we don't know how many players you have or where they'll be or what voices they'll have. And so it creates these really dynamic arrangements every time you sing it.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. That's the kind of thing that makes me super excited about the songs and how they work in the game.
Yeah, I that song for me fits. It's kind of the perfect work song for this game because, I mean, you can imagine a work gang working on an iron vein, and this would be the perfect song for the Third Age. They haven't gone back to Moria. They haven't gone back to Khazad-dûm. And what are they dreaming about while they're digging? And it's and the little touches, but mentioning the silver load, it's very lore accurate. It feels just kind of perfect. This is what dwarves would be singing. I loved it.
Yeah, this song was important to me in particular because I was thinking about like when I finally really looked at the numbers and I was like thinking how long it has been to get us to the Fourth Age. I was like, oh my God, this song is probably so old at this point that there are, it's true. A lot of these dwarves have never seen their homeland before. And so what would they sing about? What is their impression of what they'll find? It reminds me of, that moment when they stumble upon Moria and they find that it's all dark and broken and
yeah, it gives the song like a sense of history, even though it is an original song that did not exist before this game. So just and also it's in 5/4 and it worked. How was that? That was what a fun one to work on.
So one of the things that happened on launch day back October 26, 2003, that gave me a lot of joy is Teddy,
what? 2003? Has it been that long?
Did I say 2003? Let me say that again. That's how old I am. So one of the things that happened back on launch day in 2023, last October, that gave me a lot of joy was, Teddy, you posted on Instagram yourself singing one of the, I believe it was from the Song of Durin. And I think you said you had been waiting so long to let people hear it. So I just remember seeing you post that and I was like, oh, this is so great.
Yeah, it was a moment of, it almost felt like, exhaling for the first time in a while, because I had been, we had all been working on this game and Max and I had been working on this soundtrack for it was years at that point, right? And I hadn't been
years
to anybody. And I'd been wanting to, especially with the Song of Durin, this gorgeous melody that Max came up with, and then the chords that we were able to work out for it. It's an arrangement that really moves me, and I have wanted to sing it along with other people for so long. And I hate this feeling of all my favorite songs are songs that nobody's allowed to know.
Well, maybe we can find a way, with your permission, to extract that Instagram post and maybe include it here for people.
The world was young, the mountains green, no staying on the moon was seen, no words were laid on stream or stone when Durin woke and walked along. He named the nameless hills and dells, he drank from yet untasted wells, he stooped and looked and near and saw a crown of stars appear.
We should play one of the verses. I believe I have all of them. Is there one verse in particular? I've heard the first verse 1,000 times at this point from playing the beginning of the game. But which verse do you think we should play?
I think this second, third, they're all slightly different. The second one has this build I like. The third one kind of has the interlude. And then the last one has like a minor turn, a minor variation on the theme that I really enjoy. That's not helpful because I just listed 3.
You just listed like half a... well, why don't we listen to the last one? Because I think the last one is straight from... That's the one that's the closest to what Gimli sings to the Fellowship in the party. Let's listen to that one.
The world is grey, the mountains old, the forge's fire is ashen cold. No harp is rung, no hammer falls, the darkness dwells in Durin's halls. The shadow lies upon his tomb. In Moria, in Khazad-dûm, but still the sunken stars appear in dark and windless Mirror. There lies his crown in water deep till Durin wakes again from sleep.
Yeah. So throughout all the different verses, we kind of had the tone and timbre reflect the story. So the earlier ones are very triumphant when we're singing about the glory days of Khazad-dûm, and then we get to the present and it's sad, and there's a little bit of a major turn at the end. And we had originally conceived of maybe writing an actual new final verse to reflect the restoration that we do in the game.
Yeah.
It didn't end up working out, but
yeah, we just ran out of time. We had so many things to do.
Ran out of time. And this one in particular was really fun to record because Matt, who you actually hear featured on this part, on this version in the soundtrack, he took this verse very seriously in the recording studio. After he sang it through the first time and kind of saw what the concept was, because by this time we'd already sung, 4 other verses of this song. He's like, hold on. And he actually went into the corner for a couple minutes and focused and got into character, and then just knocked out this amazing take with kind of the that trailing off ending, and he got way into it, and that was super cool and fun to watch. So the minor variation on that was really fun to do, and the whole Song of Durin was just such a joy to work on.
Teddy, had you heard that version before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It still hits me brand new every time when I hear Matt singing. Just in this his spirit as a character is absolutely broken, and I found it to be a really inspired performance.
Yeah.
And the way that we adjusted the chords and the melody as well for this, and then the background vocals too, the way that we adjusted that to be appropriate for this minor turn, this sadder verse. He plays it like he is individually plucking and breaking the strings of my heart.
Well, we could probably talk for another hour. We didn't even get into the score or the cinematics or any of the other music, the goat, anything like that. Oh! So many things we could have talked about. But I want to just congratulate both of you. Scott McDowell is not here. I just want to congratulate both of you. 34 tracks on the soundtrack, original music, earworms, I think all of them. So you both just did an incredible job. And I think this little kind of odd idea of let's have the dwarves sing turned into what I feel like is like the central pillar and the hallmark of the game that I'd like to think if the game is remembered in the future, it'll be remembered for both of your work. So thank you as the director. Thank you for the work you did on this game.
Thank you as the music guy for letting us pursue our crazy ideas and write a bunch of songs. It was an absolute joy. One of the coolest things I've ever gotten to work on. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm so beyond grateful to have had the opportunity to get to come in here and put on my little tap shoes and sprinkle a little bit of nonsense in the world of Tolkien.
Love it.
Yes. And thank you, Teddy, for all the contribution, support, and help, because this soundtrack would not have happened without you.
I think I'm going to channel my public radio interviewer instinct, and let's pick a song to take us out on. So, Teddy, you want to do the honors to pick one more song? That last one was kind of sad. Maybe something a little.
If I was going to pick something to play us out here, what if we get out of here with a good old Elga?
Old Elga, let's do it.
Old Elga.
Good old
Elga was a spitfire whose thirst could not be quenched. If ever interrupted, her annoyer would be drenched. One hand around a tankard, the other up to wail. She was fit to fight most anyone after 18 pints of ale. Old Elga in the evening leaned up against the keg. A fella tried to trip her, so she stabbed him in the leg. One hand around the tankard, the other up to wail. She was fit to fight most anyone after 18 pints of ale. Old Elga in the tunnels, a flask across her hip. She skewered up an oric as she took another sip. One hand around the tankard, the other up to wail. She was fit to fight most anyone after 18 pints of ale.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Grab the game on August 27th. And thanks a lot. See ya.